Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for watching PT's Far Removed Uncle right here on YouTube. I want to give you a little update to Jeremy's case updates on his violations of probation. As you can see, we're looking at the Clerk of Orange County's website here. Today, February 20th, he had a hearing for the violation of probation status, and then a follow-up on the 23rd of this week. The court minutes for today's status hearing have not been released yet, but there has been two new court dates established, May 1st and May 4th, for the status hearing and then the violation of probation hearing. So it tells me that whatever happened in court today, even though the minutes have not been released, it's been pushed until May. So he's not getting out of jail yet. And then Orange County incarcerations, the inmate lookup stuff still says that he's incarcerated in Orange County Jail. So we will keep you updated on that. Once we get the court minutes released, we will tell you what they said, and then we'll follow up again in May to find out what happens there. Jeremy also has a number of holds for a number of criminal charges that he's been charged for now, like insurance fraud and stuff. One of those was a fraudulent cash deposit, which you probably know about. We've covered that. Today he had a motion for release on his own recognizance put on file. Jeremy's public defender, Kaylee LaFleur, wrote this up. This is a motion for automatic release on recognizance and as part of Florida Rules of Criminal Procedure. And one of the reasons here is that it says if at or before the hearing on this motion for automatic release on its own recognizance, the state indicates it will not file formal charges within the next 33 days. So the defendant, Jeremy, is requesting an ROR to be granted. So I guess it's either that, stay in jail, or Jeremy Dewitte comes up with the bond money to get out. It's a long shot, but I guess worth a try. Jeremy Dewitte also has these other pending charges, including the insurance fraud and a number of other things here. These were all updated today with more information being filed and a notice of intent to participate in discovery. Here's the filing for the defendant's notice of intent to participate in discovery. And this one was filed by his public defender, Brooke Tharp. And this is basically requesting a bunch of stuff from the state of Florida to disclose to Jeremy and permit Jeremy to inspect, copy, test, and photograph the following information that's within the state's possession, which is basically a list of names and addresses of all persons known to the prosecutor to have any information relevant to these charges, statements of any person who is furnished in compliance with the preceding subdivision, any written or recorded statements, and the substance of any oral statements made by co-defendants, portions of recorded grand jury minutes, any tangible papers or objects have been obtained by the plaintiffs, whether the state has any material or information that has been provided by a confidential informant, whether there has been any search or seizure and any documents related thereto, any tangible papers or objects that the prosecuting attorney intends to use at the hearing or trial, any tangible papers, objects, or substance in the possession of law enforcement that could be tested for DNA, any material information within the state's possession or control, constructive or actual that tends to negate the guilt of the defendant, and all evidence in the actual constructive possession of the state that is exculpatory or can be used as an impeachment evidence. And they cite a case, Brady versus Maryland. This type of information is usually basically all these things that you see on the screen, anything that can be used to mitigate crimes that the defendant directly or indirectly is accused of committing. Which, I mean, I don't know what Jeremy's public defender is trying here, but we all know that Jeremy's guilty of this stuff. But you can go through here and read those if you want. So that was the notice of intent to participate in discovery. And then information was also filed, which we can take a look at. This is filed by the state, and this basically just goes over his counts. Count 2 is saying that in March of 2020, Jeremy violated Florida statute with intent to injure, defraud, or deceive another motor vehicle insurer. And this is the one with Esurance. And that was where he misstated the facts when he signed up on the application, where he said his vehicles were being used for personal, but they were actually being used for business purposes. Count 3 is another motor vehicle insurance claim created with Permanent General Insurance Corporation. And that's the exact same thing where he pretended that they were only being used for personal purposes, but they were really being used for commercial purposes. That's fraud. Count 4 is with Infinity Auto Insurance Company, where he made a fake insurance claim for payment or benefit while knowingly making statements that are false, incomplete, or misleading, up to $20,000. And then count 5 is where he failed to, and knowingly failed to, report as a registered the vehicles and stuff that he had in his possession that he was using. Instead, he tried to just register them under Metro State LLC, so he could say that's not him and those aren't his, when they're really in an LLC, an entity that he controls. So that's what went on with Jeremy Dewitte in court today. I don't think much is going to happen on the 23rd in regards to his violation of probation. I think all that's been pushed until May. If there's any changes to that, though, we will report it right here. The only other thing that's been going on in court is with Jeremy Dewitte's fraud claim with Yellow Cab Company of Orlando. You know how Jeremy and his brother, actually Jeremy's brother, Dewitte, was in that collision with the yellow cab, and then Jeremy told Dylan, just go home, I'll take care of this, and then he proceeded to commit fraud. You know, Yellow Cab is now suing him. Well, there's been a deposition while Jeremy's been sitting in jail. Dylan Vogt was deposed by Yellow Cab's company, Walter Ketchum, and he answered a lot of questions. Let's go over those really quick. Mr. Ketchum starts by asking Dylan, state your name, please. He says, Dylan Vogt. And where do you live, Dylan? And he said, I live with my mother, or whatever. Are you currently employed, Dylan? Yes. By whom are you employed? Then he answers some questions here. Maybe it's his electric lawnmower landscape company he's saying there. Mr. Ketchum says, okay, what's your educational background? How far did you go to school? And Dylan says he went to some college. Mr. Ketchum says, okay, where did you go to college? Dylan Vogt answers, Valencia College. The attorney says, okay, are you the brother of Jeremy Dewitte? He says, yes. He says, and back in 1984, were you employed? He says, yes. By whom were you employed? Dylan says, Metro State Special Services. Oh, but Jeremy says he's just a contractor. The attorney says, and what is Metro State Special Services? Dylan says, we were a funeral escort company. He says, what is your age currently, Dylan? He says, I'm 29. He says, what did you do for Metro State Special Services? Dylan says, I helped facilitate funeral escorts. The attorney says, was there anything that you used to do this? Dylan says, motorcycles with emergency lights and uniforms. The attorney says, okay. Dylan continues, and protective equipment for riding the motorcycles. The attorney says, I have shown you a video which I believe comes from August 29th, 2014. Do you remember August 29th, 2014? Dylan says, not specifically, dude. The attorney says, if I tell you that the video was shot, whatever date the video was shot, were you working for Metro State at the time? Dylan says, Metro State? Yes. The attorney says, Metro State. Dylan says, yes. He says, what were you doing at that time? Dylan says, we were doing a funeral escort. The attorney says, okay, I've shown you a video that came into our possession that shows your group escorting a video, and I've shown it to you through the point where you seem to leave the parking lot and go home, either your home or your brother's home. Where did you go? Dylan says, I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember, dude. And the attorney says, okay, because your brother kept saying, go home or go to my house, and Dylan says, mm-hmm. The attorney says, so you went wherever your brother told you to go? Dylan says, yes. The attorney says, okay, and at the time, were you an employee of Metro State? Dylan says, yes. He says, was your brother your supervisor? Dylan says, yes. The attorney says, so were you on duty? Dylan says, correct. The attorney says, so at all times watching this film, were you following the orders and directives of your brother, who was your supervisor at the time? Dylan says, correct. The attorney says, okay, so did you watch the video up until the time you left the scene? Dylan says, I did. The attorney says, and you watched it from before the accident all the way up until the time you left? Dylan says, from the moment we left the church to the time of the accident. The attorney says, okay. Dylan adds, to the time I left. The attorney says, and it's on film. Where did the film come from? Dylan says, body cams, helmets, cameras. The attorney says, so was it from viewing the film whose body cam or GoPro was recording what you just saw? Dylan says, it was clear to me that it was Jeremy Dewitte's camera, sir. The attorney says, would it be his body camera or his GoPro? Dylan says, it's his camera on his helmet. The attorney says, okay, on his helmet. Was that a GoPro or what? Dylan answers, it's a contour camera. The attorney says, okay, contour, all right. So from the time the video started up until the time I stopped the video, which was when you left the scene, did you have a chance to review all the video? Dylan says he did. The attorney says, okay, was there anything in that video you found to be inaccurate? Dylan says, no, there wasn't anything that was depicted that was inaccurate. The attorney says, okay, so that film, is it your testimony under oath? Well, let me ask you this way. Has the video been modified or changed in any way? Now listen to this, because this is the interesting part. Dylan answers, yes, it has been. It has been altered with the watermark of I am dating a police impersonator, Jennifer Burton's video. So they're directly using the only copy of this film, which is Jennifer Burton's copy of the film that she uploaded to YouTube to get Jeremy in trouble. They're directly using her evidence that she provided to indict Jeremy Dewitte and go make the Dewitte family go through all of this. Jeremy Dewitte is still being punished because of Jennifer Burton. But the attorney answers, okay, and then Dylan goes on. Underneath that, all the video that has been depicted from the beginning to the end looks to be 100% accurate. The attorney says, okay, so on that date, did you have somewhat of a collision with Yellow Cab? Dylan says, correct. The attorney says, and on that date, did you want to stay and report it to the police yourself and tell them of your involvement in the accident? And Dylan says, yes. I had no understanding of why I was being ordered to leave. And we all know it's because Jeremy wanted to stage an insurance claim. The attorney says, okay, and the next question is, why didn't you stay? And Dylan says, I was just being told over and over to leave. By who? By my brother, Jeremy Dewitte. Jeremy Dewitte? Yes. Okay, at some point, did you leave either at the time the police arrived or before the police arrived? Dylan says, it would seem as the police arrived. Attorney says, okay, we have paperwork that establishes that Jeremy Dewitte contended that he was the person on the motorcycle that went down and was involved in whatever the accident occurred with Yellow Cab. Is that correct? Dylan says, correct. Attorney says, is that accurate? Dylan says, no, that is inaccurate. You getting the paperwork is accurate. Attorney says, yeah. Dylan says, the statement is inaccurate. Attorney says, okay, so was he involved in this accident as a participant? Dylan says, as a vehicle that collided? No. The attorney says, yeah, was he on the motorcycle at the time, whatever impact occurred with the Yellow Cab? Dylan says, no, he was not. The attorney says, okay, was there anything about his location at the time you had this accident with Yellow Cab that would cause him an injury? Dylan says, no. The attorney says, do you know whether the motorcycle that you were on was damaged in any way? Dylan says, yes. Attorney says, was there a number on your motorcycle? Dylan says, yes. He says, what was the number? Dylan says he can't recall. The attorney says, okay. Dylan says, it's possible that we could get a snapshot of the video from the video. The attorney says, I'm looking because we may have some pictures of it. Then they go off the record for a minute. Then they come back on the record and says, Dylan, from your observation, is there any way that your brother sustained an injury from this accident that required him to go to Florida Hospital and also be treated for the EMS at the scene and run up approximately $15,000 worth of bills? Dylan says, no. The attorney says, from your observation, did Mr. Dewitte sustain an injury to this accident? Dylan says, no. The attorney says, was Mr. Dewitte even involved in this accident? And Dylan says, no. The attorney says, was the motorcycle you were on at the time, did it get totaled as a result of this accident? Dylan says, no. The attorney says, what was the damage to it? And Dylan says, there's some grinding on the crash bars. Then they go off the record, and then they come back on, and the attorney says, Dylan, are you under the influence of any drugs or alcohol or anything that would affect your ability to testify today? And Dylan says, no. He's like, I don't do drugs, man. The attorney says, and are you under subpoena to be here to testify? And Dylan says, yeah. The attorney says, and is that why you're here? Dylan says, yeah. The attorney says, you didn't voluntarily come in and say, I want to give a statement. You're under subpoena and honoring the court's subpoena. Dylan says, yeah. The attorney says, we filed a lawsuit against your brother in which we alleged he was not the person involved in this accident. Therefore, he made a false claim for injuries from this accident, and he filed a handwritten answer to which he denied that to be true. Based on the video and your involvement, if your brother made a claim that he was involved in this accident, that he was injured as a result of it, had to go seek medical care at the emergency room, and with other medical personnel, did he make an accurate claim for this accident? Dylan says, that's incorrect. No, he did not. The attorney says, all right, so we're going to stop at this point to see if I can get pictures of the motorcycle, and then after that, we're done. Dylan says, can I look over the video for them? And the attorney says, sure. And then they say, let's see here. And then they have a discussion off the record. That's when they introduce some images of the motorcycle that Jeremy had submitted as the damaged motorcycle. You can see those here on the screen. We'll just scroll through him real quick. I believe Jeremy was had reused pictures from an older accident, because I don't believe this is the actual video, the pictures of the motorcycle in question. So you see the motorcycle there. Dylan reviews those pictures, and then the attorney says, do these photographs accurately reflect the damage done to your motorcycle at the time of this accident? Dylan says, no. The attorney says, what side of the motorcycle had damages on it from this accident? Dylan says, the left side. The attorney says, meaning the left side by your left hand? Dylan says, as you're riding on your left-hand side. The attorney says, okay, and what damage did it have? Dylan says, there were scrapes from the road, had very specific pavement pattern on it, and its scrapes were from that pattern. The attorney says, okay, does the company purchase these motorcycles new? Dylan says, no. The attorney says, and in essence, where do they purchase them from? Dylan says, government surplus. The attorney says, okay, so was this motorcycle that you had ridden frequently? Dylan says, yes. The attorney says, did it have scratches and damages on the area where it is contended? Dylan says, minor scratches. The attorney says, so in the area where you had some scratches from the accident, was that new damage or just some damage on top of the old damage? Dylan says, there was new damage on top of old damage. The attorney says, okay, and the only thing that was what? And Dylan says, crash bars and handles. And they were just scraped up, the attorney says. Dylan says, yeah, they were scraped. And possibly some lights. And that's basically where they end the deposition from there. And they wrap up the deposition with Dylan. And then they call another witness that they ask some questions. The attorney asks, is there something else you'd like to tell us at this deposition? And the witness says, yes. He says, after the point of finding out that the taxi driver was cited with tickets, he had no further communication with Jeremy Dewitte about this incident on him going to the hospital. Dylan says he had no knowledge of that. He had no knowledge of him filing suit in the insurance claims. He had no knowledge of him receiving payout from the insurance claim, nor did he receive any payout from the insurance claim. The attorney asks Dylan, were you injured in this accident? Dylan says, yes, I was. The attorney says, what injury did you have? And Dylan says, I had scrapes to my hands and knees. The attorney says, okay, you look like you were walking around kind of stiff at the scene. Were you hurting there? Dylan says, yeah, a little bit. The attorney says, and did you want to stay and advise the police that you were the person involved in the accident? Dylan says, he did. The attorney says, and were you not allowed to do that? Dylan says, correct. The attorney says, and who demanded that you leave the scene and not report this to the police? Dylan points to his brother. Jeremy Dewitte did. Jeremy wasn't there, but still. The attorney then wraps it up and says this is the conclusion of the deposition. So we can see there that Dylan was honest in his deposition, at the same time throwing his brother completely under the bus. So they are moving for a summary judgment. As you can see here, Yellow Cab is filed a motion for summary judgment because the facts in the case aren't disputed. But this is still moving forward, so we will keep you apprised on what happens with the Yellow Cab lawsuit and with Jeremy's fraud lawsuits, which are criminal offenses. And we'll also keep you updated on what goes on his violation of probation hearing. Really doesn't look like Jeremy Dewitte's going to be getting out of jail anytime soon. With all these charges and potential liabilities of his, it's not looking good for him. But we will keep you updated right here on PT's Far Removed Uncle. What I want you to do now, if you haven't already, is check out the link in the description and go over to the PT Video Network and sign up for a subscription so you can join and get access to PoliceTube and Jeremy Dewitte documents that you haven't seen anywhere else. We just uploaded this documentation about Jeremy's secret half-brother, William Lawrence Vogt. Do you know about him? He's 4 years younger than Jeremy and 5 years older than Jeremy's brother Dylan, who we were just talking about. But did you know that he's a potential police impersonator as well? And him and Jeremy got in trouble back in 2005 for impersonating police at Walmart. I'm sorry, when they went to Kmart and tried to get some cash refunds on some stuff that they bought at Walmart. But they claimed, oh, we're just here with our mother, Ursula, and nothing really came from this, but there is a report about it, and there is a lot of information about Jeremy's brother, William Lawrence Vogt, in there, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So check that out. Plus, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. You can see a video of Jeremy Dewitte yelling at Orlando PD, the truth video about Jeremy Dewitte working at a cell phone kiosk at the Mall of Millennia, and why he went to Lebanon. It's not for the reasons he said. We have Jennifer Burton's statement from the day after she met Jeremy Dewitte. And you don't even have to sign up to see a lot of this stuff. You can just click on this and it's free to download. We have a bunch of evidence of Jeremy Dewitte's stolen valor. We have updates on the Vidler and Ramsey case. We have a bunch of stuff that you want to see. So check out the PT Video Network over on the link that's down in the description. If you can check that out, sign up, and it helps support the PoliceTube, basically. Help PoliceTube grow and show your support by being one of the early adopters of the PT Video Network. Still less than 30 days old. Got a lot of documentation up there. Check it out. A lot of it's free. Some of it you have to have a membership to actually download. But if you want to help out, we appreciate that very much. Thank you for watching this video update today about Jeremy Dewitte's court cases. We will keep you updated. Make sure you subscribe to PT's Far Removed Uncle right here on YouTube. Like this video, and then also comment down below. Let me know what you're thinking. Thanks for watching, and as always, make sure you have yourself a great day.